Good afternoon, and I hope you've had a great start to your day. Welcome to yet another episode of Real Life Talks, and today we're going to talk about climate and the effects of climate change in Kenya and all over the world.
Thank you very much. For me, first, climate change at the moment should be given first priority. One, Panin, the weather pattern that we're now experiencing is really changed. Or nizasema hata iko funny because one part of the country where has never been dry is experiencing dry conditions. That is, for instance, Meru. When you travel to the western region, you get that the farms are not producing as much produce as they used to be because of the rains. During short rains, you get a huge amount of rains. During a time that we should be experiencing short rains, you find that there's no rain at all. Or when the rain comes, it's a rain that inaharibu mpaka crops. Go to Ukambani, it's really dry, extremely dry. And it's not only in Kenya also, but even if to our continent in extent, Nigeria is experiencing floods. You see, the oil levels in Libya is changed. When you go to outside the continent of Africa, the icebergs are melting, and the melting they're bringing it a lot of bacteria. Scientists are saying that they're bringing a lot of bacteria, which we know will cause very many infectious diseases. It needs to be given first priority, because even if the government of Kenya is now talking of like importing food stuff to curb the food security that we're now experiencing, and also another part of the government is saying we plant trees. We're going to plant lots and lots of trees, but who will be irrigating those trees? Looking at it from the broader perspective, when you're planting trees with the weather pattern that is changed, are we going to depend on irrigating these trees, or are we going to construct dams for that matter, or what are we going to do to ensure that these trees that are planted do not dry up and that are able to sustain the weather conditions until maturity? Two, when you talk about importing foodstuffs, to what extent will we be continuing to import these foodstuffs? We need to produce our own food, because when we import the food, we not everybody will have access to them. It will be just for the marginalized people. But now for the normal people, how are they going to sustain themselves? That's something that we really need to give it a lot of priority, do a lot of research, do a lot of discussions on how to go about as far much as climate change is concerned.
Okay, for me, Kenya's economy is largely depending on tourism, agriculture, and climate change. It has been an issue for a very long time in Kenya, and it's like a story every time, every year, every season. Climate change, and it has greatly affected mostly parts, the eastern part of Kenya, Turkana. Yeah, so the stories get to be told, but for me, I don't see any action being taken. Yeah, the people there are really suffering, and also climate change. Uh, the main cause for me is industrialization. Industries have not really take action in through the emission of those gases. Like for example, in Kilifi County and also in Nairobi industrial areas, those gases which are emitted really cause diseases to the people who live around those areas. And action really need to be taken by the government.
Yeah, even from what Farah has said, when you talk about industrialization, we are going to have discussions of controlling industrialization. But to what extent will you be controlling these industrializations? Because these industries have been operating and operating. Are we going to close them?
Not really. I don't think the point is about closing them. But from what you guys are saying, I think that all this thing is something that can be avoided. There are obviously a cause to why we're experiencing it, and I think human activities are involved involved, like what you're saying, emission of gases with these industries, and also pollution. I think that most people have really been. Does pollution really contribute to climate change?
Yeah, it contributes. It contributes greatly.
Yeah, so I think most of what we're experiencing now, it's because of the activities of us human beings.
But I would like to guys, let's tuangalie kitu hivi. The out of our African content, those guys are really industrialized. They are really experiencing the first class industrialization. But now, narrow it down to Africa. Africa is not yet industrialized. Development is not yet key. How will we be able to control that industrialization? Yet, we want it to be developed.
For me, Kenya is among the newly developing countries, and for us to be able to assist these types of climate change and industrialization causes is by the government partnering with the climate change agencies. They come together and look for solutions so that this problem can be solved.
Now that we are talking about controlling industrial emissions, the African continent is not yet industrialized, fully industrialized. Development is not yet that much. So we have to depend on things like industrialization to increase our development status. How are we going to control this industrialization? Because there are industries that contribute to fast development. Yes, but you may find that these industries emit a lot of gases. But when we talk about development, they are outside African continent. They will still have the foreign invasion. Like those whites will still have to have a say in our matters. Will we be able to resist these industries from setting base in Africa?
Not really. Okay, from what I understand, it means that these countries that they have industries, like they're not experiencing what we're experiencing, or what's the point?
Yes, they are experiencing, but they also wish to. They are inexperienced. They are contributing to in what climatic change, but they've not ceased operation. And two, they really need to. They are continuing to widen their production. Widening their production means they have to open other bases in places that they're not operating from, right? So, for instance, if let's say a company producing the blue canopy that we use for roofing, this is sort of a plastic, right?
Yeah.
So if they were to construct a base in Africa, yes, when you import such materials, it brings you a lot of revenue, but will you resist that industry from being constructed in your country? So that's why I started by saying that this matter concerning climate change is a very key thing that should be discussed from all perspectives. Because when you talk of we've sung these things like planting trees, controlling soil erosion, taking on the way we construct, taking on the land mines. But when we look at the tiny bits like things to do with development, each country is looking to control its unemployability status. Each country is looking to increase its revenue collection, which these things mostly are connected to production, either industrial production or just the normal production, which will still contribute to the climatic changes. Yeah, that's from me. These things should, even the United Nations needs to change the way they discuss the issue, the way they tackle the issue of climate change, because at the end of the day they will still come up with the same solutions. Let's control our soil erosion, let's control our industrial emissions, but we are controlling industrial emissions for how long? Until once you control them from like 2, 3, 4, 5 years, 6, 7 years, another industry opens again with the same emission. Scientists can help us better, you see, because everything that we consume at the moment, from shoes to clothes to food stuff, they pass through the industries. right? So there is the researchers, at least they need to they need to do a lot of homework in this, because we've been talking of controlling emissions, but they've been continuing emissions because zikiendelea. So controlling emissions is not a solution to me at the moment. It's never it has not been a solution, and I don't think it will be a solution. Only we need to do is like, when you come to these industries, let's look at the raw materials that these industries are using. Which one is contributing more to these emissions? How can we diffuse? It's a matter of just diffusing, not controlling. Let's diffuse the emissions that we are having, because industries will continue to emit. Yeah? It really needs to be given first priority. Yeah. Right now, at our country, we are not yet we have not yet recovered from elections. Right? Yet people are dying because of the climatic change. So this needs to be matters of priority. We need to do a lot of discussions to get the way forward.
And also, as we look at the effects of climate change, maybe we should try and also educate people on what exactly is causing this climate change. All right, thank you so much for listening. That was a very good discussion and very enlightening. And at least we've highlighted some of the effects of climate change and some of the causes and what can be done, or rather, at least to try and reduce what we're currently experiencing.